Conversations with Malik podcast, coming to you from Long Island, New York. I'm glad to have you and thank you all who are listening and watching this show. This podcast is about the stories of transformation of regular people during the basic struggle and pain of life. Listen, everybody has a testimony. We all have survived the darkness. Now let's talk about how we got to the light so we can help our brothers and sisters who still haven't overcome their demons. But guess what?
Talk to me.
We all have devils on different levels. So through conversations, we use the tools of insight to light the path of hope. Let's have a chat and stop running from our issues. If we live through it, then talking about it probably won't kill us. And that's what we do here. We're talking, we're laughing, we're crying, we're joking, but we're looking inward so we can grow outward is the theme of this show. Right. The caterpillar transforming into the butterfly is the goal and purpose of this podcast. When you talk about you, I learn about me. Iron sharp as iron.
Steel sharp as steel.
So we can cut through the fog of despair into the hope of today. Welcome to Conversations with Malik. And please don't forget to follow us at convoswithmalik.com, convoswithmalik.com. We're everywhere, Apple, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, okay, the YouTube channel. Listen, thank you everybody for the support on the YouTube channel. Right. People have been tuning in, the views are going up, and it's not so much about us just getting the views, but it's about us spreading the message. Right. Conversations with Malik, Facebook page. Thank you for all the support and shout out to my co-host with the most, Jeff Joes.
Yes, sir.
Wendell, the cameraman with the plan, who's not here. Shout out to Dawn Michelle for sending people up here. Yvonne Diva Dash. Hannah Glinsky for the guests that she sends up here. I want to thank Justin Miles for all of the great work that he does with the website and the imagery. You've never seen to amaze me with the imagery that you put up, brother. That's so right. Thank you for the good work. And last but not least, my son Kareem the Dream Raheem for the great audio engineering that he does for this show. This show sounds just as good as Joe Rogan, any podcast you listen to or watch. So I want to thank you, and listen, it's a team effort, and there's no I in team. It's just not. And so, and thank you, and listen, I'm always blessed and grateful to have anyone come on the show to interview. And, we've been meeting people, me and Jeff talk about this all the time, that we've just been meeting people as a result of this show. I remember being in here, we started out in the den, and I remember being in here and there was just a bunch of stuff that we moved from Lawton here with. This was a garage, and God and the ancestors told me, hey, I need you to carry a message. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but we're doing it a day at a time. And I'm here with a brother that, listen, we've already connected. He got a chance to see me regulate my family and keep order in the house. And he was laughing at me like, brother, you so full of it. And I went out there and made everybody keep it down. And he's like, yeah, right. But listen, I'm here with brother Sharrieff-Al-Bey. How you doing, my brother?
All is well, beloved. All is well.
And listen, it's been some time. We've been trying to make this happen, yes. But everything happens in divine time.
In time is on time.
In time is on time, and never before and never after. And so it's funny that I was thinking that because I was just I was watching a special about Malcolm, and one of Malcolm's bodyguards and close friends. He said that Malcolm was saying to him, brother, everything happens on time, the way it's supposed to happen, right on time, never before, never after. And he said that that is what gave me solace in thinking about, me grieving my brother Malcolm, because who knows what Malcolm would have became after that, right? He might have actually did something to disappoint the people. I never looked at it that way. Mm-hmm. He said he might have, you never know. He might have done something to not so that his legacy wouldn't be what it was. Because I know when I read his book, that changed my life. I was in C-74, mm-hmm. One main.
Okay.
You know,
Keep it real.
23 hours lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
We was wilding on the island,
Mm-hmm.
early 90s. And when I read his book, I never went back to prison since.
Mm-hmm.
But when I read his book, something happened to me.
Yeah. Well, I appreciated in your intro, you talked about transformation. And transformation is really key because it is fundamentally different from change. Change and transformation, people use the words interchangeably, but they really are completely different concepts. Let me tell you what I mean.
Okay.
You got a vehicle. What kind of vehicle you drive?
Range Rover.
A Range Rover. So now you get a blowout, you're going to put another tire on it. You scratch your rims bad enough, maybe you replace the whole set.
Right.
Things go real well, you're rolling in the money,
Mm-hmm.
change your whole upholstery, even the upside down carpet over the roof.
Right.
You may have to replace an engine, other parts of your drivetrain.
Mm-hmm.
You could actually change every single part on that vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
You still got the same Range Rover.
Gotcha.
Transformation is when you ride in one of those donut cars that operate by electromagnetic. That's transformation.
Gotcha.
It doesn't use anything from the old,
Okay.
but it produces something from the new. And butterflies are an interesting creature with that transformation piece. It's an excellent symbol of it because when the caterpillar goes inside the cocoon or weaves itself into the cocoon, it liquefies. So all of the ingredients that are necessary for the transformation are already there.
Right.
But it's not the same thing that comes out at all.
Mm.
It's a totally, completely other creature.
Right.
But that creature would not have been possible without the first creature.
Mm.
So that's transformation. And that's the same thing that happened with me in some respects when I first read Malik Al-Shabaz's autobiography.
Yeah.
It was the most perfect example I've seen before or since of a human transformation on multiple levels at multiple times.
Yes.
Because it's an ongoing process. It's a continuum.
Yes.
It's not an event.
Right.
It's a process. That's something people gotta kind of wrap their heads around.
So
too.
talk to me about you and who you are and what it is that you currently do.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I do professionally, I'm a subject matter expert in human and organizational systems.
Okay.
Organizational development, change processes, managing change, planning change, managing unplanned change, mostly within, the organizational world, nonprofit, corporate, healthcare, what have you. Academically, I teach sociology.
Right.
And I like to teach the introduction to sociology course. I've taught race and ethnicity. I've taught human rights. I've taught sociology. In fact, I designed a course for Hofstra University on the sociology of America's drug war. And it's funny because in teaching that course, I was teaching race and ethnicity at the same time, and I was teaching human rights at the same time. I was teaching the sociology of culture and the sociology of violence. And sometimes I would forget which course I was teaching to which group of students at what time because there's so much overlap, especially
as you're saying it. I'm like,
yeah, So it was an interesting experience, but I love teaching. I taught marriage and family, but I like teaching the intro to sociology the most because it allows me to touch on all these other things. And I tell the students right from the outset on day one when we're going over the syllabus, my job this semester is to F you up.
yeah,
to
break down what
Yes.
you think you know.
Exactly. That's never been challenged. To uncover the hidden biases and hidden assumptions that you have that you don't know you have because nothing has ever challenged them before, to make you have to really think about them and realize you even have them. Whatever dad told you, whatever mom told you, whatever grandpa, grandma told you, the neighbors and the teachers, you just took these things because that's what children do.
Because that's what our environment, that's what we're exposed to in our environment.
Exactly.
And so it's funny because I do something called 7 Minutes of Wisdom with Brother Malik on my podcast.
Okay.
And a lot of, not a lot of what I talk about, but sometimes I touch on ideas and concepts. And ideas and concepts are how I view the world based on external influences, either through people who love me, my parents, people, my church, the mosque, my school, the people on my block, my community, aunts, uncles. People impose truths on us, either consciously or unconsciously.
All day long.
Right? And we take on other people's truths as if it's ours. As if it, so it's funny because I was talking to a young man in my office, and I said, "Yo, are you being honest with me?" He said, "Yeah, I'm being honest with you, brother Malik. I'm for real. I'm telling you the truth." I said, "Look, honesty and the truth is two different things. Honesty is your perception of the truth. You can be honest. I know some honest people. Yo, I trust that brother. He an honest brother, man. That brother will tell you. Just because he honest, that don't mean telling you the truth. Honesty is my perception of the truth, right? And so we take on things that aren't necessarily our truths. They're external, and we got to really find ourselves on a deeper level to find our truth. So when you talk about breaking down what they think they know is real about the world, talk to me about how you do that.
Well, it's a lot like those old snow globes, and then a little novelty thing that the tourists buy, and you shake it up, and it's like all the little snowflakes glittering inside.
I love those things.
That's what I'm talking about when I say to the students that I'm going to F them up. If I haven't done that by the end of the semester, I haven't done my job. Because we have no way to find out who we are if there's no process that enables us to unearth what's there. We don't know what's there. A lot of what's there formed around, how the oyster makes the pearl, right? A little grain of sand or a little speck of dust or whatever gets in, it's touching that extremely tender surface inside the oyster. The oyster's in its shell, but something has penetrated that shell and it's an irritant. And so it starts coating it with mother of pearl to protect itself. Well, that's just like us. The ego does the same thing. The ego's job, we don't want to kill the ego. We need the ego because it helps us to protect our consciousness, our psyche. But it's not the one who's supposed to rule.
Gotcha.
Because then what it does is it protects us from reality.
Ooh.
And then we can never really be real, not even with ourselves.
Ooh.
So when we're in the earliest stages of psychological development, where all we can do is see light and see shapes and see colors, we have no way to recognize them or identify them. We don't understand them as colors. We don't understand it as light. It's a purely physical phenomenon going on within our eyes, within our brains. We touch a thing, we feel different textures. We don't know what any of this stuff is. That's the time that we're like the oyster. We are so vulnerable to damage.
Yes.
And when things occur that damage us, we start to coat those things with perceptions. Okay? So that we can remain psychologically alive.
Yeah.
And they become ancient truths to us in the course of our individual life. These are ancient.
Yes.
And we don't even know that they're there.
Yeah.
Okay? unless we enter some kind of a transformative process in our adulthood that starts to dig in and unearth this from our own consciousness. We don't even know they're there.
We don't even know it's there.
But they are free to influence our behaviors, our choices. You know what? Here's a good example. When you look at your computer screen, at your monitor, and most people usually keep their taskbar on the bottom, and if you're one of those people, imagine all the way on the right-hand side of your taskbar where the calendar is, the clock, the volume indicator, whether your print is on, whether you're connected to a network, whether it's a wireless network, whether it's where you have to plug in. I can't recall the name of it now. But all those little icons, that part of the taskbar is called the system tray. And those programs are programs that you don't have to interact with on an ongoing basis. On the left-hand side of the taskbar, those are the ones that you're working with right now. Yeah. Word, whatever the different...
That gets you the way you gotta go.
Exactly. Yeah. They're what you're working on right now in real time. But those other ones are the important ones. Because let's say, for instance, you want to write a document and you want to send the document, and you want it to appear that you wrote it at a certain time or on a certain date. Yeah. And you want it to appear that you emailed it at a certain time and on a certain date. But if you go to the right-hand side, you can change your calendar and change the clock.
Right.
It can look, the computer is going to believe whatever you set.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Once you set the volume for the speakers, the computer is not going to do anything different from that until you come back and change it.
Right.
That system tray, I use it as an analogy for something business sociologist by the name of Peter Senge calls this mental models.
Yes.
And the mental models are formed in the earliest parts of childhood, and they continue to be built upon as we come through into adulthood.
It's hardwired.
And we don't know that they are there influencing our operations in the same way those TSR programs terminated, still running.
Yes.
TSR programs. They govern the entire behavior of that computer until you consciously return to that TSR system tray and change something. That's what we have to do. But the first thing is we got to find out we have a system tray. We got to find out what programs are set to what, influencing what, and then we can make changes. Then we can transform the operative process.
And we got to realize that something's wrong in the first place.
Exactly.
In your experience, what does it take for somebody to kind of realize, hey, there's something wrong with me?
Something cataclysmic. And cataclysmic is different for different people.
Right.
It has to do with what our conditioning is. It has to do with what our expectations are. It has to do with what we've been socialized to perceive as cataclysmic. See, for some people, their divorce is cataclysmic.
Right.
But that depends on the nature of the marriage.
Right.
Some people, a death of a loved one is cataclysmic. But that depends on the nature of the relationship.
Right.
Some people, it's a near-death experience. For some people, it's a dream they had. Somehow it changed something in their consciousness. They can't go back to the old way of understanding the world anymore. Sometimes it's travel.
Yes.
Being exposed to things
that
they never saw, never conceived of before. It's the black swan. You ever heard of the black swan?
Yeah.
It's the black swan. Once upon a time, when Europeans had never seen a swan that wasn't white, it never entered their mind that there could be a black one somewhere.
Right.
So it wasn't something to reject because it wasn't even a concept.
Right.
Until they traveled, it was like, oh, there are black swans.
Right.
So we don't even know what we don't know yet.
It could be something bad or good. It could be somebody listening to this today.
Right now.
That goes, oh, right? For me, I was broken by the streets.
Okay.
The death of friends, his older brother, drug and alcohol addiction, being addicted to the streets itself.
Yeah.
It broke me. it broke me to a point where I was now teachable, where I now could listen to what was coming in from outside. I had a lot of help around me. My mother was a pastor. You know, I had spiritual giants in my life. Muslim brothers in my family. You know, I mean, I was enriched socio-politically, spiritually, religiously. I had it all around me. I didn't want for nothing. But
your lived experience,
I had to go through what I had to go through.
see, and this is one of the things that I appreciated in what you were saying earlier about time and timing. And I read an analogy somewhere back in my history. I don't remember who wrote it, who said it, but it stuck with me, and I share it today. You ever go to a circus and watch a trapeze act? That's about the best lesson I know for understanding the value of timing. Everything has its excellence.
Because if you off, baby,
it don't matter if you got there a second too soon or a second too late. Your outcome's pretty much the same.
And your flip can look nice. You can talk.
All until you hear that sudden splat, you know.
Splat. Oh.
Yes.
And a lot of us splat in life.
All day and all night.
A lot of us splat in life.
You know, consistently and continuously.
So talk to me about your experience. What shaped you as growing up as a young man? Where are you from? Who were your influences? Give me the backdrop.
I was raised in New York. I was raised by my maternal grandmother, Rashied, God bless her. She stepped in for my mom when my mom couldn't take care of me. You know, my mom was a brilliant human being. I was just talking about her earlier this evening. She graduated high school at the age of 16.
Wow.
At the age of 18, she had a 4-year journalism degree from CUNY. So she was quite a human being. But you know what? No matter how astounding any human being is, the golden idol always has feet of clay. You know? Nobody's perfect. And everybody's imperfection is idiosyncratic. Nobody's got your imperfections but you.
So she had her.
She had hers.
She had her demons.
And this being Mental Health Month, you know, I would be remiss not to shout out to the people who struggle with that every day.
Okay, yeah, that's
and
real.
she was one. You know, she struggled with mental illness.
Okay.
Her mental illness was not well understood, and she was very likely misdiagnosed because of that. So I didn't have my mother more than a couple of years throughout the course of my life. Cumulatively speaking, I didn't have her more than a couple of years.
Okay.
So my grandmother and my mother's older sister stepped in and they brought me up.
Gotcha.
You know, they had a 3-story walk up in Brooklyn. That's where I grew up.
Okay.
Ocean Hill, Brownsville.
Ah,
you know.
Brownsville, never ran, never will.
There you go. You know, I went to intermediate school in East New York. And the East, you know.
I know about the East. This is my sister. Come on, matter of fact, we went to Eaton Footprints in Brooklyn yesterday. And we was coming down Pennsylvania, and I remember Jefferson High School because my sister lived on Van Sicklen between New Lots and Livonia.
Okay.
I spent summers over there.
Right,
I'm a Queens cat.
Right in the thick of it.
Jesus Christ. So we went over we could go to Jefferson High School because that's the midway point between East and Brownsville. You could go to Jeff. What happened was we went past Jeff up into what's those apartment buildings? We kind of went over to Pickens. We didn't get to Mother Gaston over there, but we got over to Pickens and we crossed the L and we got chased back. And so the dudes from the block was like, yo, don't go past Jeff, man. Don't go past. You could go to Jeff. That was like neutral territory for some reason. Because everybody went to summer camp. There. Don't go past. So, from Brownsville. I'm sorry, man.
No, listen, it's all good.
So you grew up in Brownsville. But a very rich cultural community. Brownsville and East New York, brother.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I remember uh, I had a teacher in the 4th grade who persuaded me that I was going to be a lawyer one day. She used to always say, Miss Klein, Barbara Klein, used to always say, oh, he's going to be my Harvard attorney. And I'll tell you why, brother. She gave me a hall pass to go out to the bathroom.
I love these stories.
And I got out in the hall, you know, my little ADHD self, man. I was intrigued with everything, you know, everything except for class. I realized, you know what, I better start heading back. And just as I got to one of those doorways, passing through one corridor into another section of the same corridor, she was leading the class downstairs. And I was like, oh man, I almost missed my class.
Right.
And she said, where were you? And I gave her some story. I don't even remember what I said.
Yeah.
She said, you know, you gonna grow up and be a lawyer one day.
Yeah, cause right now you full of shit.
Yeah. See, and I was in the 4th grade, so I didn't understand that's what she was saying. I told my grandmother, oh, Miss Klein said I'm gonna be a lawyer one day. And she said, you know what she was telling you? But after that, the beautiful thing about Barbara Klein is that she took that and she used it as an opportunity, you know, to expose me to another way of seeing myself. And from that day on, I thought I was going to be a Harvard attorney, you know, and it was a good thing. It was a good thing. But what was going on at the time is that there was a big conflict going on between the community and the teachers and public school administration. United Federation of Teachers in the school district. It was a big political roiling going on. If I had gone on to the 5th grade in the school I was in, then when I graduated, I was going to go to 271, which had been a junior high school. It became an intermediate school. I was going to be there in the 6th grade, and she, with good intentionality, was trying to get me outside of the conflict where it couldn't interrupt my educational process.
Gotcha.
And I got transferred to a school out near Highland Park, near Ridgewood.
People who didn't look like you.
Those who did were being bused there. Busing in New York City began around that time. Okay,
that's an important point in history. So you was in all that.
Yes. So that actually is when that part of Brownsville became Ocean Hill, Brownsville.
Oh,
okay.
Gotcha.
Brownsville was further up on the hill.
Right.
And when you came down what's now Thomas Boylan, back then it was Hopkinson Avenue, down Saratoga, you were heading north towards Broadway.
Yeah.
After you crossed Eastern Parkway, you were now in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, because that school district is what caused that change.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So she meant well. I got transferred when I graduated from the school out by Highland Park, and that's how I wound up in intermediate school in East New York.
Gotcha.
And then from there, when I got myself back in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, I was right back to where she didn't want me to.
Gotcha.
But just to show you how every virtue, it has two vices with it, one of excess and one of deficiency. And everything has its excellence, and the excellence of movement is timing. That was the time for me to go back, because the principal of the school that I went to for my last year of intermediate school turned out to be Percy Jenkins. Dr. Jenkins was my grandmother's first cousin. So he was my third cousin. I didn't get suspended when I acted up over there. I got, go downstairs and wait for me in my office. I'll be down there for you.
I'll be there in a minute. Yeah. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Brooklyn Technical High School.
Nice. My sister graduated from Brooklyn Tech. Where did you go to college?
I went to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania.
Never heard of it.
Lincoln University was established in 1854, before the Civil War was even fought, much less over.
Whoa.
Lincoln University is in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania, maybe about an hour to an hour and a half drive away from Delaware.
Whoa.
It was the first institution of higher learning to grant degrees to black people.
Wow.
So
a lot of cows and farms out there.
Oh yes, still. So it's like the grandmother of HBCUs. Now it's chartered in association with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania now.
Gotcha.
So it's a state. It's a school that is overseen by the state as opposed to the traditional HBCUs.
Gotcha.
But it began as an HBCU and it's still operating and continuing pretty much in the HBCU tradition. So there's this ongoing argument as to whether or not it's Cheney or if it's Lincoln. It's Lincoln. 1854 is 1854.
Yeah. So your love with learning stems from
my mother and my grandmother. Years ago, when we would ride the subway, back then they called it the IND. I don't think they still do. They had the IND, the BMT, and the IRT. Reminds me of the Last Poets. They used to have these little cardboard advertisements up. They're in the same section in the trains now, but they were made a little cardboard and printed out. And one of them said, "If a machine learns your job, what will you do?" And it terrified me. And I came home and I asked my grandmother, I said, "Nana, if the machine learns your job, what are you going to do?" She said, "I'm going to learn to run the machine." Wow. I said, "Damn, I never thought of that." You know? So between my grandmother, my mother, my great aunt Dolly, that was my grandmother's younger sister, they were the ones that really, really inspired me to want to learn. You know, my grandmother and my aunt Dolly, when I was 4 and 5 years old, what they bought me for my birthday was a 4.5-inch thick unabridged Webster's dictionary and a set of encyclopedias.
Them suckers could break a hole in a wall.
Yes.
Man, these kids got Google now. We had Encyclopedia Britannicas.
Yeah. And I used to get under the cover at night with my dictionary or one of my encyclopedia volumes.
They don't know nothing about dictionaries.
And a flashlight. I had a little radio, a little transistor radio, and I would be under that cover, you know, listening to the Frankie Crocker show, you know, and reading, you know. At 9 o'clock, Frankie would go off, and they'd have 3 hours of radio preachers, and then at 12 o'clock, Gary Bird would come on with the Gary Bird Experience, and I'd be listening. I'd get yelled at for singing under the bed, under the covers, you know. But that's what it was, man. And the more that I read the dictionary, I would read the etymology and figure out where words came from, why this is the word that it is, why it means what it means, how different words connect, and it just never stopped, you know.
Black people here, people of the African continent who are now here in America. You know, we come with, we have reasons for why we are the way we are. There's no excuses, but there's reasons.
Always.
I deal with a lot of people in business. I'm blessed to be a leader. I deal with other leaders. I deal with people who I'm put in position to be the one to kind of take us in the direction that we need to go. But Donna Jonas was on, and she said, "Well, Malik, you know, I think we're all leaders because we all have to lead ourselves. So in a sense, we're all leaders." And when she said that, remember when she said that, Jeff? I was like, "Oh wow, I never thought about it like that. We all have to lead ourselves so we're all kind of leaders." But I find that, I guess because I'm aware and awakened, I see the damage that has been done to our people just in my day in and day out interactions with them. But then it's also perpetual damage that we continue to do to each other in the broken homes, rape, molestation, drug addiction, foster care, you know, people growing up with it, you know, it just the whole different dynamics. And when I'm sitting with people in my office, I kind of hear what they're not saying, but I can kind of read in between the lines, and I can see the damage, and it gives me a level of because I have the understanding, there's some empathy there, and I realize my job is to, okay, Malik, you see the problem. Now go to God for wisdom to help, to try to help this person. We come with a lot of stuff, man, from the men to the women. Just talk to me about the state of African American here in this country, 2019. Because we got a lot of issues, man.
You know, we could have a nonstop conversation from now to February and still not really even scratch the surface. There's so many places we could start from, you know. And just a quick note about help. Because, you know, people can't receive help until they're in a place of readiness. Even if people can know that they need help. A lot of times people don't even know they need help. They think they're okay. You know how long I lived my life and I thought I was okay? I didn't know I needed any help. And then when you find out that you need help, there's a whole array of emotions that go with that. Shame, guilt, disbelief, disappointment, anger. Anger is a big one. And if you can work your way through it, you may come to a place of readiness to receive help. But here's the thing, and I never thought about this part until I was working on my second master's, and I came across a man by the name of Edgar Schein, one of the earlier, you could call him a founding father of, one of the founding fathers of organization development, and his take on it was to go into an organization's culture. Well, culture is something that it permeates everything in human activity. A human being, as an individual, has an individual culture.
Okay.
Interrelationships between two people, between groups, between families. Anytime there's interpersonal relationship, there's a culture.
Okay.
And the purpose of the culture, the purpose of all culture, is to help human beings do the two most fundamental things essential to their survival. One, it helps them to determine the best ways and methods to navigate successfully through the changes in their external environment, and at the same time to navigate successfully to integrate internally. So now, when we think of the internal integration, what we're saying is, if you fly a plane, you go on a ship, you go in a sub, and it does not have airtight or watertight integrity, it means that the thing is not functioning as one solid unit. It's going to implode. If it's a plane, it's going to explode. If it's a group of people, if it's a social group, then they're going to be fractured just like we are. They're not going to be able to function as a unit. Look how divided that we are politically. Look how divided that we are economically. Look at the state of our social weakness. And this was something I was speaking on just a couple of minutes before we got started here. We were talking about the fact that immigrants that come here from other countries and surpass us in performance and in acquisition, and then they look back at us and say, well, what's wrong with y'all? Y'all been here since forever. And we look at ourselves and say the same things, but the process was not the same. Yeah. And because we've been here, we have not been able to identify opportunities in the same way that they have, because we don't have the distinctions that they have. We've been around it for always,
right?
But we're so conditioned to being locked out
that we think we
can't get in.
Gotcha. But we're gonna go to a quick break, and when we come back off the break, we're gonna continue to build on that, brother Rashied. Quick break, y'all.